Oh, I'm sorry. Did I break your concentration?
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, what would happen if your mobile phone killed you?
We are tonight's entertainment.
I would rather watch Beautician and the Beast.
People don't forget.
And here we go. Made for movies.
And we are back. This is the Made for Movies podcast. I am your host, Eric Russo, and Marvel fans, very special episode for you guys today. We are going to be doing a deep dive on Shang-Chi, The Legend of the Ten Rings, the new MCU film that just came out, #1 in the world at the box office. Very, very excited to talk about it, break it down. What did we like? What didn't we like? With me, a very special guest today. I have my buddy Paul Dixon on with us. Second time, Mr. Marvel himself now. Paul, what's up?
What's up, Eric? How you doing, man?
Pretty good. Excited to finally get to talk to you about this one. It's been a couple weeks since I've seen it, so I've been foaming at the mouth, ready to unleash some Shang-Chi on you, and I hope you're as excited as I am to dive into this.
Yeah, I'm ready to roll, man. I apologize for the delays caused by me. My house is in chaos right now, so I appreciate your patience on that front.
No worries. Dad life is a real thing, so
Yeah.
I could never hold that against you. At least your son still is the most dapper dresser in the world, so it's always great to see on social media. But yeah, let's just jump into this, Paul. I know the last time we spoke was about the film Black Widow, which I was a little bit higher on than you. And I think in general, it's safe to say you're as high or higher on the MCU as a whole as I am. You typically are just ride or die for these movies, which is awesome. So it was a little surprising to see you a little down on that one. So where were you at as far as like expectations going into this film?
So Black Widow definitely didn't help. That definitely dampened my expectations a little bit. But going into this, I think you and I spoke months ago. I was most excited about this one because it's one of the Marvel characters I know the least about. So I didn't have this issue of like, hey, they did it differently or they did it a way I didn't like or that I didn't remember. I knew very little about the character outside of like the main things that people know. So I was excited to see something, from my perspective, newer and something that was going to surprise me, hopefully, in a lot of ways. I had some concerns, in terms of my expectations based on Black Widow, I was a little concerned. For lack of a better word, they'd go a little too woke or like just be a little too heavy. I like these movies to be an escape for me,
Sure.
The world is heavy enough. These movies are something I just go in, have fun, don't have to think too hard about. That's just my opinion. That's why I enjoy them. They're fun. They're an escape from reality for a couple hours. So that was one of my concerns as well. But again, I was overall like really excited to see something new, something fresh, something I had no preconceived notions about going into.
That's a good point too. So I know you're a pretty big comic book fan and Marvel fan. Is there any other films in the 23 film saga that going in, it was kind of like this for you where you didn't know really anything about it? And where did that leave you as far as, did you like those movies more or less compared to the other ones?
Yeah, really the only one that I knew very little about other than the fact that they existed in like somewhat obscure, not very popular comics was the Guardians of the Galaxy. And we all know those two movies are by far two of my favorites in the entire MCU. So, that was kind of the thing I was counting on here. I was like, okay, well, the last time they did this, I ended up loving it, so hopefully it's the same thing,
For sure. Yeah, that's kind of what I assumed were going to be the ones. That seems to be on, pretty much for everyone has that answer as far as stuff they didn't know about was Guardians. I will say, going into this, for me, I would say I was not the opposite of you, but definitely on the lower end of excitement, just because with the Guardians, although I didn't know anything about it, the trailer was just perfect. Like, just totally captured. One, it captured exactly what the movie was, but it just looked like a really fun time. And I was a huge Chris Pratt fan already at that point from Parks and Rec. So I was just so excited to see him get this starring role in a Marvel movie. I thought that was totally insane. And I love Batista, Bradley Cooper, Vin Diesel, like keep going, you know. So this movie, I didn't know anyone in it for the most part. A couple, you know, supporting actors I was familiar with, but didn't know anything about the characters, didn't know anything about the actors or the directors. So I had nothing to go off of. So again, I trust Marvel. I trust them to deliver. But my excitement was very low, very mild. I would say it's very similar to the Eternals coming out, where, yeah, it looks good, but like it's just not registering too much on my radar yet. I'm sure it'll be great, and I'm sure I'll love it. But it was kind of nice to go into a Marvel film not really expecting too much from it, other than just like a good movie. So from there, we will move into your general thoughts. I know you've seen this film. I have not heard a word from you, so I have no idea what you're about to say. So break it down. How did you feel about this movie?
So, like I said, had some concerns going in. One of my other concerns was, after watching Black Widow, was this is Shang-Chi. The one thing I do know about him is he's the best fighter, hand-to-hand fighter in all the MCU. So, like, you got to bring it, fight choreography-wise. This has got to be... I love the Ip Man movies. It's got to be Ip Man. It's got to be The Matrix. It's got to be, you know, just next level, you know, great fight choreography. And without going into spoilers or too much detail, I was worried about that, and they brought it on that front. It was kind of cool because after seeing the trailer, I was a little worried they'd go a little too Crouching Tiger. Not that that's a bad thing, but I wanted to see more Ip Man and The Matrix and a little bit of like the Crouching Tiger mystical kind of stuff, right?
More grounded though.
More grounded, right? More grounded. Like I want to see this guy get into some cool, like, you know, gritty, in your face kind of fights. You know, and I think I left very, very satisfied on that front. I was impressed, and I guess people that have listened to this before and listened to me on the Black Widow, you know, review that don't know me probably think I'm one of these like pessimistic, like cynical type of people, which I'm totally not.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
so
the total
easy to
opposite.
please.
Yeah.
And like I said, I had some worries going in, and which I think says a lot. You know, I didn't really get this feeling with all the movies, even the ones I like. Like I almost stood up and clapped at the end. Like I enjoyed it so much, man. So it was really good for me. I really enjoyed the movie.
Oh, that's great to hear. I actually thought you were not going to like it based off some of your comments. So I don't know if you were just playing with my expectations, but yeah, definitely a little worried. But yeah, for me, I'm happy to hear because I can safely say that this is one of my favorite MCU movies ever. I've been trying for 10 days now to think of something wrong with this film, and we will definitely do a deep dive out of the spoiler section, but I couldn't find it. From your point, the cinematography and the fight choreography, hands down,
Amazing.
Is the best I've seen in a Marvel movie. I'm a very grounded in reality person as well, but I thought the moments, and I don't want to spoil them quite yet, the moments were very earned when it's not grounded in reality, so I thought it worked. So the fight choreography, the guy that did the choreography actually trained under Jackie Chan. And I thought that this movie did a great job paying respect to a lot of Asian culture films, specifically Jackie Chan movies. For those of you who have not seen, there is one action scene that we won't get into yet that very much reminded me of a Jackie Chan fight scene. Very like silly, but also super serious at the same time. So I thought that was flawless. But yeah, overall, acting-wise, I thought everyone was tremendous in this movie, specifically Simu Liu, and who plays his dad again for the Mandarin?
Tony Leung?
Yeah, Tony Leung. Yeah, both of them carried the film. I thought he brought a lot of depth to a villain role that you just don't see in superhero movies often. Of course, once in a while we do get them where he's a very sympathetic villain, which I always like a lot more than just evil, I'm here to destroy the world and I have no reason for it. I think it works a lot better. But yeah, I was totally blown away by this film. We will get into some spoilers in a second. But yeah, overall, Paul, any last thoughts on this movie before we move into spoilers?
No, I'm going to say this very carefully so people don't misunderstand what I'm saying. I mean it as a huge compliment. I feel like we live in a world, and I'm not that type of person, that if a movie is very diverse, they're hesitant to criticize it, right? Because they don't want to come off as though they're not being supportive. Um, and I want to like drive home the fact that like this is exactly what I want from like any movie, diverse, especially something with diverse characters, right? They're there not because they're diverse, but because they're diverse characters and they're awesome at what they do. This movie was just flat out great. Like the performances were fantastic. The everything top to bottom was awesome. I only say that very carefully because I've had some conversations with people about that before, and it's like, I almost feel like sometimes the people are taken away from the performances when they do that, and this movie was just awesome from top to bottom. The characters were great. The acting was great. Like you said, we talked about this before. One of the big things for me in a movie is those big scenes are earned because the writing and the acting make you care about the characters, and they blew that out of the water. Like they really did. Simu Liu blew me away. Was fantastic in this movie as the main hero. I can't wait to see him in more movies. Just really legitimately great performances. Tony Leung, like you said, one of the criticisms of Marvel, at least in the early phases, was the villains didn't really have a lot of depth or didn't really, kind of bring you in and take them too seriously. They were just kind of, passable villains, right? Like whatever. This guy was awesome, man, in every way. Emotionally complex, kind of where you could see why he went the direction he did, but he still doesn't excuse that he went the wrong. Everything they did on that front was just. Like I said, I loved it. You hit it on the head, too. The cinematography, everything about this movie, top to bottom, was awesome.
No, I 100% agree. It's so funny. So, yeah, the writing to me in this movie might be the best writing in any Marvel movie, in the sense that a lot of the Marvel movies, they rely so much on fan service, and I love it. Mm-hmm. Like, it all builds up to these moments that the moments are good because we know the characters, we know the actors. There's no writing in those movies that earns those moments. It's been earned over the last 10 or 15 years, seeing, Captain America pick up the hammer, like one of my favorite moments ever. Yep. Endgame didn't earn that moment, though. The whole entire, MCU earned it, right?
Yep.
So this movie has zero fan service to rely on as far as there's no other Avengers in this movie for the most part, Actually, no, there is no Avengers in this film. So it doesn't have those cheap pops, those cheap moments that a crowd's like, oh, like that's the thing that they're going to talk about when they leave the theater. It's super authentic, and it earns every single moment in the movie. And every character gets their moment, and I thought every single character's moments were earned. Awkwafina specifically, I'll give her a shout-out. I wasn't really feeling it in the first 15 minutes because I thought she was just going to be straight comedy relief. But by the end of the movie, which I don't want to like spoil where her character goes quite yet.
Sure.
I thought her character's destination was very well earned, and it had me very excited about potentially where they could go with that character moving forward. But that's all I got for overall thoughts. We're going to pop into some spoilers. So if you have not seen Shang-Chi, go see it. You will absolutely love it. Marvel fans will love it. Non-Marvel fans will love it if you like action movies. I think this movie is a home run for everyone. If you didn't like it, let us know in the comments. Send us your thoughts. I'd love to hear why. But, Paul, let's just jump into some spoilers. So we're going to kind of go through this movie in chronological order. We're going to start with the opening scene. I know you were talking about Crouching Tiger. To me, this is the ultimate Crouching Tiger type scene. We get Shang-Chi's parents meeting for the first time. What did you think of not only the interaction between them, but also just the fight scene in general?
Yeah, so at first I had some concerns because when we're starting the movie off with that immediately, I was like, they go a little too heavy with this. I don't know how much I'm going to like it. And a lot of times I feel like, if you're being honest, when a movie starts in subtitles, for a lot of people, that's why people don't watch a lot of foreign films in this country. Let's be honest. It's kind of like, oh no, how much of this is going to be like this, and is it going to take me out of the movie at all? And I always point to when, again, like we said, when the writing, when the acting, when everything's great, you start to even forget that you're watching subtitles. There's a great show on Netflix called Dark, if I can give it a shout real quick. It's one of my favorite shows of all time. And,
I've heard great things. Very Stranger Things like, I hear.
yes, and I feel like halfway through the episode, the acting and the writing is so great, you forget you're even watching a show with subtitles. That's how this one became for me. I did have some concerns. Like I said, I love the mythology. Don't get me wrong. I wanted that to be in there. I just thought when they were jumping off with that it might go a little too heavy in that route. But again, as it went on, every minute that went by, I was like, oh, that's really cool. Okay, I didn't see that coming. And then, again, it ended up being really important in the end, that setup of the relationship between Shang-Chi's mom and Shang-Chi's dad. And so, again, it all earns itself, like you said from the beginning. That's the most important part. And so, yeah, it was cool. First couple minutes, like I said, I had some concerns. I was like, oh, no, but it ended up just going in the right direction. The visuals were great. That was something I'm glad you brought up. The cinematography, the CGI. There's a couple Marvel movies that at points the CGI gets a little wonky and a little too much. I didn't really think that was the case in this on one viewing. It's the only movie, obviously. Most of these I see several times. I haven't seen this more than once. But yeah, I liked it. I enjoyed it, man. I thought it was very cool.
Yeah, of all the things I'm most excited to rewatch as far as on a second viewing, it's this opening scene and just the introduction to his character in general. I wasn't 100% bought in like you, and I thought that the visuals were very good, but I was also concerned that they were going to be like that the entire film.
Yep.
And it seemed like they were almost showing off in a sense. Now, in hindsight, it makes a lot more sense why they were showing the things they were, especially with the connection to his mom. How the mom essentially can defeat the dad with almost like a love style fighting and I just thought that was really cool that was the callback. He couldn't defeat his dad with anger. He needed to kind of embrace his mom's way of fighting to finally defeat him at the end. So I thought it was a good setup for that. And I did enjoy it. But again, I thought it was one of the weaker action scenes in the movie again, because I just didn't know quite what I was watching. But to your point on the subtitles, I really like that part of it. I think it just adds a sense of authenticism to it. It reminded me, I don't know if you saw Mortal Kombat, the new one. Terrible movie, but the first 10 minutes are hands down the best 10 minutes in the movie, and I thought were just totally spectacular, and not a word of English is spoken. So similar in that sense for sure. But yeah, let's keep it moving. So from there, we obviously get the intro to Sean, as he's called at this point, and Awkwafina's character. Katie, I believe. And so their intro eventually, while I thought the intro was really good, let's specifically focus on the first huge set piece of the film, which is the bus scene. So tell me how you felt about this action spectacular.
Loved it. Loved that they didn't give away too much of it in the trailer, which I think Marvel's gotten very good at over the last couple of movies. Other than Black Widow, it was hard for them because of all the delays. They had to keep releasing a lot of footage, which I think hurt that. But I thought they kept what they showed contained enough, and it was even cooler than what I expected from the trailer. I thought the fight was incredible. Awkwafina's reactions were great. And I go back to what you said. I was concerned that her character was going to be a little too goofy. It was going to take me out of the movie. I wasn't going to like it too much, and I walked away so impressed with her chemistry with him and the interaction between the two of them. She was great. Just enough, in my opinion, of those little comic relief moments to lighten the heavy moments. But top to bottom, man, again, this is all one viewing. But I really enjoyed it, man. I thought it was very cool. I thought the genuine surprise on her face when he's lighting these guys up, and she didn't even know he could fight. It was really cool, really well done. The choreography was great. It gives you that a lot of those. I always think of Daredevil in the hallway scene, but there's a lot of them where they put people in a contained space, and it's like kind of like that in your face like fight choreography. Very cool. Definitely alleviated some of my concerns. Like I said, I wanted to see, Ip Man type choreography. As you alluded to, Jackie Chan movie type of choreography, a little bit more intense. And obviously, I don't need to tell you a ton of that in that scene. It was very, very cool. I enjoyed it very much.
Yeah, I think it's hard to say this is my favorite action scene. Again, to your point on the marketing too, I agree. I think Marvel has gotten so good at showing a lot, but also not really showing anything. And
Right.
I felt everything in this film. So I remember seeing the bus scene in the trailer. That's really the only action scene I remember getting a really good look at. Everything else is like little quick cuts. So I was pleasantly surprised to see how much better this was in the actual movie than in the trailer. And to your point, the biggest thing with me in action scenes is how like the camera is cutting around the action, which Marvel is a huge offender of a lot of times with these quick cuts. This movie just revels in sitting on the action and just showing everything, long, continuous takes where you're kind of moving throughout the bus with Shang-Chi, which I thought was really, really well done. There's like a slight manipulation of CGI that if you're like really looking for it, you can see it's not 100%, authentic. Like he's not doing all these scenes himself with a huge ass camera there, but it's so minor that it didn't bother me.
Yeah.
And again, to the Jackie Chan stuff, this was the scene I was referring to, the Jackie Chan scene, because as he's fighting on the bus, there's just these little tiny moments where he's like apologizing to the bus passengers, and he like sits down next to the lady and says hi to her, and he's just like, he's so innocent and so goofy, while at the same time, delivering one of the most badass action scenes ever in a Marvel film. To your point, Awkwafina's reactions were kind of my reactions. I was just like, because at this point, it's an origin story. We don't know if we're getting a Rey Skywalker situation where she's like, I don't know who I am, but now I'm a master with a lightsaber because I'm related to someone, which makes no sense at all.
Right.
With this, like, I loved how, although it's an origin story, a lot of the details in the beginning are left out. We're like, he's already pretty much fully trained. I really like that aspect of it. And we'll get into the flashbacks a little bit, but I loved how they used, I hate flashbacks in movies. F9, a great example where it just like pulls you out of the movie for 30 minutes at a time. I thought the way they did this, instead of doing it as like a linear film, which they could have done, they could have told the story from him as a kid. And I just thought it worked perfect because it like kept giving you these little sprinkles of character development for him, his dad, his sister, and it just worked flawlessly. And I'm so happy that they had him pretty much fully developed entering this movie versus learning the powers like we see in so many origin stories.
Yeah, we talked about that with Black Widow, and I think it goes back to everything. How good's the writing? How good's the directing? Plot. The flashbacks can be an overused plot device. I think we said that like verbatim on the Black Widow podcast. But when they're done right, they're really great. And this is an example of doing them the right way, like intercutting them, giving you little bits and pieces of his background and what he just. It goes back to the subtitle thing. Subtitles do not bother me. Let me make sure I clarify that. What I was alluding to is, like any movie, if the movie's not very well done, that to me, that's just another thing that can take me out of the movie. But when it's done well, they don't even matter. They disappear, right? You don't even notice them. And that's what this movie did. When they had scenes with subtitles, it's so well done. You don't even notice them as a speaker of the language. They just kind of disappear because the performances are so good. You care about the characters. And that's another part of the bus scene. The couple of minutes that they spend before that, they do such a good job in a very quick amount of time, and this is a credit to Simu Liu's performance of, he's a likable character. You care about him already. You care about the relationship in a very quick period of time because it's like kind of endearing, and they do a good job of that in a quick period of time. So, which is important to me. Caring about the characters is central to caring about the movie at all, and I think that played heavily into the bus scene because you already kind of are like, oh, I like these guys. They're cool, so.
Yep. So from there, I totally agree too. It's amazing that they were able to do that in about maybe 7 to 8 minutes of those scenes of him just kind of being a normal guy. Again, I didn't know he was already going to be this kung fu master at this point, and I think that's why that reveal works so well. But again, yeah, really well done. Awkwafina, great job. From there, we move on their journey. They go to look for his sister, and we get the next action set piece on the scaffolding system, as well as a couple surprise cameos that we saw in the trailer. So, what did you think of the cameos, and what did you think of that fight scene?
Cameos were cool, just enough. As a person, we talked about like this. By the definition of Shang-Chi being a new character in a new world, it's got to stand on its own 2 feet mostly. But as a person who's been watching the MCU movies for a decade, you like seeing those cool little callbacks or those cameos when they're used the right way, right? So. Perfect way with the fight scene between Wong and Abomination, and I love Wong. If you watch these movies over the last couple movies, he's just one of those guys that you just like always good for a good laugh, but also a cool character. So great to see him in the movie. That made me smile when I saw him, in there battling. It also peels back some layers or just adds more questions. Why is he there? What's he doing?
Yeah, I was confused. So this is the weird part. The last time we saw Abomination was the Incredible Hulk film with Edward Norton. I don't quite remember what happened to him at the end of that. I know he got his ass kicked in the finale, but it appears to me that the Abomination is a good guy now, because he is very clearly friends with Wong as they leave. They're like, let's go get a beer, basically, or wherever they go.
Yeah.
Now, I do know that Abomination is in the She-Hulk series, and I believe Tim Roth is coming back, which would lead me to believe that he will be as a human, kind of similar to Hulk, transitioning back and forth. I don't know if you agree with that, but I'm very curious to see where they go with that character who I've completely written off. So that should be exciting.
Yeah, it's so many questions come from these little cameos. Like I said, why is Wong there? Why is he doing it? Is it we saw in what was it, Endgame? He didn't have enough money to get a sandwich, so maybe he's just trying to earn a couple bucks. I don't know, but yeah, that definitely piqued my interest too, because I don't know if it was through the movies or just something else I heard somewhere else. Somebody confirmed that obviously Abomination is still out there somewhere. So it's interesting to bring him back. What does it mean? Is it a tie-in to the She-Hulk series, so people remember him a little better when he shows up in that? It'll be interesting to see how that unravels. And as we know, we don't get into it yet, but with some of the other things that come later, there's a definite, at least from my perspective, tie-in that this is going to be relating to the whole direction they're going in this phase. To the Doctor Strange movie. So it's interesting. Very interesting, man.
Absolutely. So one thing that's funny, too, with this scene, obviously we get Shang-Chi in this kind of martial arts tournament. I thought for sure, I'm like, all right, they just had Abomination appear. I thought 100% whoever he fights, at least in the first fight, is going to be a cheap cameo, like a bigger name than Abomination. So I was like disappointed for like 5 seconds that it wasn't, some crazy cameo. But then I was just like relieved. I'm like, okay, so this movie is not going for that. It ends up being his sister who kicks his ass. I wasn't totally blown away. I thought this could have been a better scene. Of course, he's not really fighting her, so it's not really meant to be that, which is totally fine. But it does lead into, in my opinion, again, it's hard to pick which one's my favorite, but the scaffold fight scene with the 10 rings coming after them is flawless, in my opinion. The way the camera moves throughout the scaffolding, like you're swinging with Shang-Chi, is incredible. I, for a second, thought Awkwafina was going to die, which is very crazy. Like in a movie like this, like, oh, no one dies. But it seemed like it was very possible that she was going to be like this casualty in this fight, because people are falling off this building left and right. But what did you think of this fight scene before we move on?
I loved it, man. Exactly the opposite of our conversation with Black Widow. You're gonna hear me say that a lot. I was very impressed with it. I'm going to make a weird, very weird analogy. I'm a huge Star Wars fan, as you know. I'm not a huge fan of the prequel trilogy, but there's a lightsaber, very brief lightsaber battle between Darth Maul and Qui-Gon Jinn in the desert. It's like 3 seconds, but I think it's one of the cool. I wish they would have played that out a little more because I think it's one of the coolest looking lightsaber scenes in all of the entire series. Maybe that's a controversial opinion.
It's the ultimate tease ever.
Yeah, just visually in the desert, like the sand kicking up. I thought it was so cool. I look at this scene, especially. I believe, and again, I only saw it once, but I believe right before they go out onto the scaffolding is that scene where you very, very briefly get a little throwdown between Shang-Chi and Death Dealer, the guy with the makeup, that assassin that works for his father.
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they have
yeah.
like the
Dealer.
The backgrout is like backlit with all that like cool.
Oh my god, I know that it was
visually
absolutely
that was so
beautiful.
Cool. Yeah, I almost got up out of my seat watching that one, like I was watching it at home.
That's a great point too. It was maybe 15 seconds.
Yep.
In fact, of all the things in the movie, I thought they could have revisited that. You're right, because they almost introduced that character as a Darth Maul type villain, very mysterious. He's the one that seemed to beat the shit out of Shang-Chi when he was a kid.
Yep.
And you're right, it was like 10 seconds, and it was so beautifully shot. I want to say one of the James Bond movies had a kind of similar high-rise fight scene in a building. I think it was Skyfall. But yeah, just the lighting that was coming through was so aesthetically pleasing. And then, of course, it goes up to 100 miles an hour in like 10 seconds later. Yep. But any other thoughts on this one before we move on?
No, the entire scene was cool, man. I really liked it. I liked the scaffolding. I liked the stakes. It seemed real. You definitely felt like someone could die or get hurt. But like I said, that for whatever reason, as good as the scaffolding scene was, that scene sticks out in my mind. And the first thing it made me think of was that Phantom Menace very brief scene. Like, I wanted to see more of it,
Yeah.
And same thing with Death Dealer. I would have liked to have seen more of him in this movie, but we'll get into that.
Yeah, he was built up very well, and if there's anything again that didn't really have a perfect payoff, I would say that character kind of took a backseat in the finale.
Yeah.
Where I thought he could have played the major secondary villain. I wasn't a crazy fan of what was the guy's name? He's got a ridiculous name, Razor Fist.
Yes, yeah.
It reminded me of Taserface,
Yeah.
the name anyway. So,
yeah, definitely.
I just didn't really like the actor. I couldn't like he just didn't do it for me. Of all the actors in the film to be like the second lead bad guy, I would have much rather seen it be the guy. What's his name? The character we were just talking about.
Death Dealer. Yeah.
Death Dealer. Yeah. Much rather seen him take a larger role. Have you seen John Wick Chapter 3?
I have. Yes.
So the ultimate chef in that movie is kind of like hunting John Wick throughout the film. I thought they could have done that a little bit more with that character and had him play the more lead henchman role. But it is what it is. It's not a negative. I don't like dock the movie points for that. It's just something I wanted to see more of. But we'll take it down before we get to the finale a little bit. So of course we get Shang-Chi and Katie. They go back with what's his name? The Mandarin's character to the
Trevor
10
Slattery.
rings. Yeah. We get to the 10 rings little thing, and of course we get a great dinner scene between them all. I thought it was really, really well done as far as connecting it to Iron Man 3 and explaining that this is the real Mandarin. He was not in that movie for all the people that were freaking out. He makes fun of the name the Mandarin, which I thought was really, really well done. From there we get Trevor, of course, Ben Kingsley's character returning. I thought this to me had me the happiest in the entire movie. But where are we at with the dinner scene as well as his introduction?
Yeah, I just love the for hopefully not people listening to this, not you and I, but there's still a sect of the population out there that want to act like these comic book movies are like what they used to be, like Batman and Robin and things like that. But that dinner scene just shows you like the strength of the story, the strength of the acting performances in these movies. These are not like your old school comic book movies. They're good. and the performances are great. They drag in. I love that scene. I love the interaction between all of them. And the Trevor Slattery thing is interesting because when I first saw Iron Man 3, I absolutely hated that twist, and I've grown to love it now and appreciate it more. And Ben Kingsley is just hilarious as that character, man. So I was really happy and surprised to see him come back. So very, very cool. Very nice little touch. Another guy who can provide some comic relief, but it's just funny to me to see Ben Kingsley in that role because he's such a great actor, and it probably speaks to how good of an actor he is because he has that kind of range to do something goofy and hilarious like this. But yeah, man, I hate to sound like a broken record to keep saying it, but I really enjoyed the twist. The little faceless creature was kind of weirding me out a bit, but
I love. What was the creature's name? I can't think of the name.
You know what? You're right, man, and it's really escaping me. I'll have to look it up while we're talking and see if I can find it. But
well, while you're doing that, I will continue to praise Mr. Ben Kingsley again. Dinner scene was fantastic. We did get a lot of exposition there, but I thought it worked. But yeah, his introduction to go to Iron Man 3. I've only seen Iron Man 3 once, and I've only seen it at home, so I can't speak to seeing it on the big screen. It's one of the few that I skipped. I didn't like it. And not because of the Ben Kingsley twist. Of all the stuff in that movie, that actually kind of made me laugh a little bit because I thought the movie was not very good until that. So I thought it was kind of like a breath of fresh air. I'm in the minority on that, but I don't have this crazy connection to the Mandarin. So it wasn't something that disappointed me as far as it's not comic book accurate. I didn't really get bothered by that. So to see them take, that vocal minority that we deal with a lot and kind of throw this character back in their face, you get the real Mandarin, but you also get him. And to me, he's one of the strongest parts of this entire movie, especially the fact that, we're leaving this compound, the Ten Rings compound, with a 3-man team of Katie, Shang-Chi, and Ben Kingsley's character, as well as the little creature. I was just like...
Morris, his name is.
Morris, yeah. This is totally kept out of the marketing of the movie, and this is the Avengers team that we're heading into the final battle with. I was like, this is just absolutely incredible. Before we get to the final scene, of course, Ben Kingsley talks about how he wants to be an actor, and his... bit that he does on Planet of the Apes. I won't repeat it, but if you've seen it, you know what I'm talking about. It's truly remarkable writing, acting, and just perfect delivery, and it's flawless, especially if you've seen that movie and you know what he's referring to. But Paul, let's move into the finale. So they obviously get to, if you could help me out, what was the world that they go? Did it have a specific name where his mom was from?
Yes, Talo, I believe it was.
Talo, yeah. So they obviously get there through the trees, almost like a maze pattern. Thought that was a cool effect. But what did you think of them arriving there? Also, just the training scenes leading up to the final battle, of course, which we'll get into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I'll save my thoughts on the final battle then, since we're stopping, at the beginning. But loved it, man. Loved the mythology of it. One of my favorite things about Black Panther, the movie, was introducing a new, very cool mythology that there's going to be a lot of layers to that you can continue to explore, right? That's one of my favorite things about these type of movies is, introducing a new, interesting, cool mythology into the world. I love that about it, man. I was really excited to see that. I thought it was played well to this point and not overplayed, right? Just enough to make it interesting and get you intrigued and want to learn more about it. Yeah, I really did dig it. I guess we're talking about now when they get there and they talk to everyone. I like the exposition there where she kind of gives them a little bit of a talk about, what's going on, where they've been, where they've come from. The Ant character, which the name of the character is actually escaping me, but she was played by Michelle Yeoh, as we talked about before. Obviously, great person to be in this part, given that she's from Crouching Tiger, right?
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it, man. Again, I don't have much to say. Visually, I thought it was very cool. One of the things I really liked about this world is it gives you those beautiful visuals that you got from Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. There's another movie that I really enjoy. It's not the same in terms of the level of fantastical elements, but there's a movie called The Curse of the Golden Flower, if you've ever heard of it or seen it.
No.
It's more so just like super colorful, and there's like a lot of cool nuances. I won't get into that. Different type of movie, but just how visually cool the world was reminded me a lot of, made me think of The Curse of the Golden Flower just because of the bright colors and things, and also obviously made me think of Crouching Tiger a lot. Some of the movies in that realm. So yeah, man, I was excited. I thought it was very, very cool, and I don't have much bad to say about it at all.
Yeah, it gave me vibes of Godzilla vs. Kong too, as far as Kong's original home planet, and just like the creatures and everything about it reminded me a lot of that. Especially we would see like variation of horses and all sorts of crazy creatures, but almost just like a nicer version of that, where everything seems to be friendly. Like it's a very peaceful place to live. But yeah, I just love the introduction to this culture. It kind of gave me like Last Samurai vibes, where you're like going in, you really don't know what to expect, and you have to kind of learn as you go how this culture works. I really like the training sequences for different reasons, of course. You know, you have Shang-Chi training to fight with like his mom, like from like a love everything perspective. Aquafina's was probably my favorite, her training for the bow, which has an incredible payoff. Of course, she's working with that older guy, and you know, of course, when he gives her the seal of approval later, it's one of my favorite moments in the movie. Their little connection, again, it's so subtle, and if you're not really paying attention to it, you probably miss it, sort of thing, but I really enjoyed it. And of course, the sister too. The sister grew up not being able to train, so the fact that she finally gets to do the training sequence and get ready for this fight, I thought that was a good moment for her as well. But yeah, let's move into it. Of course, we get the Mandarin arriving with the 10 rings to unlock the gate because he thinks his wife is back there. And tell me how you felt about this final confrontation between father and son, as well as just the overall battle scene leading up to some monster action too.
Yeah, so backtrack in just a second.
Sure.
So like the world and the mythology and things like that. Another thing I really liked about it, which Marvel's consistently done, even going back to like Thor's mythology and introducing real elements of actual Norse mythology. I'm a super nerd, so like when I see something cool in something, I want to look into it and like learn everything about it. And I didn't know this at the time, but I went into and did some research on that world because I thought it was very cool. And it turns out like a lot of the creatures we see are legitimately like creatures from Asian mythology and things like that. So they really kind of took elements of the real mythology, you know, that part of the world, and kept it intact.
That's awesome.
And just like Thor, but in their version of the world, Marvel, it's like alternate universes, alternate realities where these things are real, right? So very, very cool. Love the end sequence. Are we getting into the big monster battle now?
Let's just wrap. This is everything. Everything's on the table for you to talk about as far as the final 10 or 15 minutes. Because this, again, when they arrive, I think there's like 40 minutes left in this film, and it does breeze by, but it's a lot. It's a lot going on here.
Yeah, so again, I think they did a great build up. A lot of emotional payoff for the confrontation between him and his father. For me, if I have one criticism of it, of the movie, it's that the big monster scenes were a little too much for me. I don't think they needed it that much. Okay. It was hard to keep up with a lot of it. It was really happening really fast. And while I thought it was a cool element to have, I didn't think they need to have that much of it. And the final battle between him and his dad got a little too overly CGI for me. I would have liked to have seen more like just them two, like with some great fight choreography.
Same.
Not that it was bad by any stretch of the imagination. Very cool. And like I said, when you care about the characters and the writing's good, it's an earned scene, so it still drags you in. It's still good, very good. So from that perspective, I'll take that all day. But like I said, just for me, I think a lot of movies make this mistake. I didn't think they needed to lean on the CGI and the huge like CGI spectacle as much as they did. But again, overall very cool. The little I can't remember their names, but the little like soul sucking demons that are coming down that they have to fight.
Some cool visuals.
Little thing. Yeah, they bringing the two sides together, so they finally realize, hey, we screwed up. The whole idea of the father being manipulated by something from an alternate dimension that's playing with his emotions and making him think they're keeping his wife in there. That again, that just gives depth to the villain and makes it a little more complex because it's to a degree not his fault. He's being manipulated by a larger power. He's still obviously, I like the whole idea. He's still responsible for his choices and his actions, right? But at the same time, you can understand why he's gone the path he's gone. So, like I said, other than those couple of little things which I thought was a little too much, and maybe on a subsequent viewing I'll feel different. But I overall loved it. Just thought it was great. Thought it was earned. Thought it was Shang-Chi coming through. Great hero. Great ending for him in terms of this first movie at least. And overall I loved it. Loved the Aquafina payoff like you talked about. It felt earned. It didn't feel cheap. Loved the sister payoff where she's finally getting to train and show how much of a badass she really is. All earned. Not like... you know how it is when some of these scenes get a little cheesy because they're not earned and they just kind of happen, and it's none of that here. Just fantastic. Little bit characters, I thought they did great. Going back to, like you said, the Razor Fist guy became a little bit more of a prominent character in this scene. It didn't feel earned. Didn't like the guy quite as much.
Yeah. Too much talking for him.
Yeah, not that he was terrible, but I just
it just came out of left field.
I would have liked to have seen more Razor Fist. And I'm sorry, more Death Dealer in place of Razor Fist. Just me.
I agree. So as far as the finale goes, I think the key for me is every character that we've been following, for the most part, gets their moment to shine. And I thought that was really well done, including, Ben Kingsley. Like, we see him gearing up to do the fight, which, like, melted my heart a little bit. And then, of course... we see Morris find Ben Kingsley dead, and I thought for sure he was dead. And then I was like, man, they're really trying to milk this, like, to get you to really feel sad. And then, of course, he's acting, which, again, just it'll go down as one of the best surprise cameos in movie history for me.
Definitely.
I do agree that the fight between father and son was the weakest part of this, and I almost wish that the rings got taken out of the equation for like just a few minutes. Hand to hand, no rings involved, would have been a great kind of like Neo versus Agent Smith type scene that we could have got, where it's like level playing field, not like superhero versus super villain. I really would have liked to see them go one-on-one without any magic involved, but beggars can't be choosers, right? Like that, it still was entertaining. It almost had to be done to show Shang-Chi getting the power of the rings, which they needed for the end of the movie. As far as the monsters go, I personally loved it, and I usually hate when movies do this, where it's like, oh, of course there's a giant monster at the end of the movie, but I guess I was not expecting it to be like that type of monster. And I also liked, it seemed to me, I don't know if you took it this way, that the dragon represented the mother. As far as like they kept looking the dragon in the eyes, like the sister looks the dragon in the eye, and it just seemed like maybe it was meant to represent all of the people who have passed on, like their souls are part of the dragon, because it seemed like she like knew the dragon. I don't know if that I was reading too much into it, but I definitely saw a connection there. But then they really never went anywhere else with it, so I'm not 100% sure that's what they meant.
Yeah.
But I did like it. It was a little Avatar-y how she was flying around. It seemed like she was like controlling the dragon, which did throw me back to Avatar for a second, PTSD. Other than that, it was perfect for me. I really loved the shot of him running on the dragon towards the monster. And then he was like running down the monster because it did not cut. It was like you were like running
very cool.
by him for the final kill on the monster. I thought that was fantastic and really wrapped up this whole action sequence in a nice bow. And it was like legitimate 30-minute action sequence, which is crazy. For Endgame, we had a 10-minute final battle with 64 characters,
right?
that could have been an hour. So it was nice to see this have room to breathe and really earn each moment, which is My biggest issue with Endgame was a lot of the moments weren't earned. It was just like, hey, we're just going to put all these women together just to say we had a shot with all the women. Hey, we're going to do this. It was all very silly to me.
Yeah.
Where this, again, Aquafina delivering the kill shot, one of my favorite MCU moments for a character I didn't even like when the movie started.
Right.
Just shows you how good this movie is. So we're going to wrap it up. My overall score. So again, Paul, we're doing a new scoring system here. We rate it on 10 categories, of course, out of a possible 100 points, and you average it out. So this movie came in at a 9.1 out of 10, which is it's an amazing movie, one of the highest scores we've ever given for a Marvel movie. Certainly in the top 5 Marvel movies ever. So I ask you, where does it rank for you? You don't have to give me your exact list, but any comparisons on movies it's close to, or a little better than, or a little worse than?
Yeah, that one's in terms of where it rates with the other movies. A lot of that I play into how rewatchable they are.
Sure.
Which
you haven't
most
seen
of my
yet.
favorites I've seen multiple times, so that'll be a little harder to tell. But I mean, right off the bat, I don't have any problem. I don't know where it would fall, but it's definitely already on one viewing a top 10 Marvel movie for me, and with a strong chance that it rises up, even further than that. But again, like I said, I'm a huge nerd. The ones that I like, I watch over and over again.
Sure.
That's got rewatchability, which is what I thought hurt Black Widow. I don't have any desire to see that again. Maybe I will in the future. There's other movies like that, like we talked about Ant-Man and the Wasp. I saw it once. I don't really have any desire to go back to it. That is not the case here. In fact, I'm going to go again to see it in the theaters with my wife, because we usually see these movies together, but because of the podcast, I went by myself like a nerd, covering my face with my hat. But all kidding aside, yeah, I mean, it's definitely already in the top 10 for me. It's a great movie, very rewatchable. If I could say anything, go see this in the theater if you haven't yet. You're definitely hurting your viewing if you wait for this to come out on TV. This is one of those ones, you got to go see it. Go see it. Definitely.
Yeah, I agree. Even just thinking off the top of my head, I will say that I probably liked Infinity War more, The Winter Soldier more. Guardians of the Galaxy 2, believe it or not, will be in my top 5, as well as probably Spider-Man Homecoming. Along with this would be my top 5. So right there with Spider-Man Homecoming, which is one of my favorite MCU movies for sure. But let's talk about, we'll wrap this up, just the post-credit scenes. So we got 2 post-credit scenes. First one has Wong working with Captain Marvel, as well as a perfectly injured Bruce Banner in an arm sling from Endgame, which I love little details like that. But we get them interacting. So how did you feel about this little scene and where it could go?
Yeah, I thought it was very, very cool in that, obviously, after Loki, it seems like this next phase is headed full on, full steam into the multiverse. This did nothing to kind of dissuade you from thinking that, right? It's a full-on multiverse movie. We went into an alternate reality, which is clearly a different dimension or a different universe, right? So obviously it got me excited. It made me think that maybe Shang-Chi is going to play a little bit of a bigger role in Doctor Strange's next movie than I figured. And also I looked at it weirdly as a different spin on the initial Sam Jackson, you're part of a whole new universe now scene after Iron Man. They didn't do it verbatim, thank God. That would have been a little cheesy. But it's basically letting you know, like, hey, Shang-Chi's going to be one of the big players this time around. This is his introduction into a bigger world, right, that he's going to be a part of now and play a big role in, which, after seeing this movie, I'm excited about. I want to see him more in other movies. I want to see his sequel, So, I loved it, man. And I love, obviously, like I said, love Wong. So, more Wong is always good for me.
So, yeah, it definitely, I didn't realize how, I was just so excited to see Shang-Chi interact with the Avengers. I don't really I like the actress who plays Captain Marvel. I didn't like Captain Marvel, the movie, but just seeing him interact with her and Bruce Banner, I was like, oh man, I just can't wait to see him interact with, new Captain America, Spider-Man. There's just going to be so many great little, him and Doctor Strange will be absolutely hilarious too.
Definitely.
Because from our perspective, like he doesn't really know anything about that world, so it's just going to be fun to see his little interactions about how he's like living in this Twilight Zone. So
Yeah.
really looking forward to it. I actually did not see. Did you stay for the final tease?
I did, yeah.
Okay, so to my knowledge, basically shows his sister becoming the leader of the Ten Rings. So maybe you can go into a little more detail about that scene specifically, because I did not see it.
Yeah, that's exactly what it was. I struggled with that one a little bit because I did not know if they're pointing that towards
It's a
one of the
TV series,
future
I
Marvel
believe.
series, or is she going to potentially be a villain in the Shang-Chi follow-up? So that was a little confusing to me, but essentially what it does is it establishes her that she's taken over the Ten Rings. Now it's an organization that trains both men and women. So it was a badass scene from the perspective of, seeing her sitting up there in her, kind of like throne, taking over the organization. I was just a little confused, which maybe that's the point. It's interesting. It's intriguing. How does she get there from what we saw her in the movie? Does she think she's turning this organization into something good? Or is she just going full on into her underground, becoming a bad guy, taking over the empire herself direction? I don't know. So I was a little confused by that. But that's really all it was a setup that now she's the leader of the Ten Rings, and the Ten Rings is going to do everything she thought it should do from the beginning, train both men and women, and we'll see where it goes. So that part's interesting. It was definitely confusing to me, like I said, based on it seemed like she's going in the good direction during the movie, and now all of a sudden she's taken over this huge organization that's up to no good, right? So I guess we'll
kind
see.
of reminded me of The Mandalorian with Boba Fett at the end of The Mandalorian, kind of sitting down in the chair, because it's like, okay, we're clearly getting the Boba Fett series, but we don't. It makes you think that Boba Fett's going to be a villain when that may not be the case. We don't really know. I do believe it's going to be a TV series. I don't know if it's been announced, but it just makes sense to me that that's where her character would go, as well as maybe the TV series is her becoming the next big villain of the movie, like you're saying, the next Shang-Chi movie, which, man, if it makes sense, I'm all about it. I think that her character has a lot more room to go in any direction. She's clearly got some, pain behind those eyes, so they could definitely find a reason for her to turn evil. I mean, if you can turn Anakin Skywalker evil, you can turn anybody evil. So I'm all for it, man. But thank you so much, Paul, for coming on. If you don't have anything else, I will just tell everyone, please let us know what you thought of Shang-Chi. If there's anything specifically you want to hear discussed on a future episode, send it in and we will give you a shout out. But that is it for me. Any last words, Mr. Paul Dixon?
No, man. Thank you for having me. Although you did make me think, mentioning the TV series, the Ten Rings is usually tied to Iron Man, traditionally, in the comic books. Maybe Armor Wars, that series they already announced. Just throw that out there.
That would actually be pretty cool if they are a adversary for Armor Wars. Armor Wars is going to be War Machine, and anyone else announced for that, or is it his show?
I think him. There's some rumors, at least, of Sam Rockwell coming back as Justin Hammer, which would be incredible. Okay. Yeah. But yeah, it's all about where Tony's tech goes now that he's gone, right? So we'll see, man. We'll see. That would be cool, though.
For sure. All right. Well, that wraps it up for us. We will see you next week. Until then, bye.
Made for movies.